All right, hello everybody. Hi. My name is Amalia Weber. I'm the program specialist here at Rochester Hills Public Library. And I'd like to welcome you to this evening's program, Pewabic, Detroit's Pottery. Before we get started, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping details. Firstly, tonight's program will be recorded and available to view about 1 week from tonight on our YouTube page and on the RHPL website shortly after. We ask the audience members please silence or turn off their cell phones before we begin in order to avoid any disturbances during the presentation. Even if you feel like yours is off, it's never a bad idea to check. Our next program is Your DTE, Clean Energy and Reliability Investments, which will be an in-person program on August 21st at 7 p.m. You can sign up for that at calendar.rhpl.org. Now, without further ado, please welcome Eric Graham.
Let's see if everyone can hear me okay. All right. Perfect. Can we hear okay in the back? Everybody's good? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So my name is Eric. I'm here from Pewabic Pottery, a 501c3 nonprofit organization located in a national landmark historic building in Detroit's East Side. This presentation is free to all thanks to the generous operating support provided by our members, donors, and the Philip and Elizabeth Filmer Memorial Trust. Learn more about how you can support Detroit's Pewabic Pottery at pewabic.org. So I'm going to spend a good about 40 minutes talking about mainly the history of Pewabic pottery, as a lot of individuals don't quite know so much about the history. And then I'll also talk about some of the many installations in places that you're able to see our work throughout the U.S. So I've got lots of pictures to show you. We will have time at the end for questions. So if any questions come up or anything, try to save them till the end unless you're just burning so bad inside of you that you can't help it. So raise your hand. So we will go ahead and get started. So Pewabic was formed in 1903 and has operated out of our current building since 1907, making us one of the oldest continuously operating potteries in the United States. So the pottery picture that you see here, this is from about 1916. The building has not changed terribly much if you've ever been there, but the campus has changed a bit. So just kind of a cool way back photo that we get to show you here. Now, Pewabic was formed as part of the movements, which was a response to the Industrial Revolution. Pewabic has always focused on and celebrated the handmade. Our story starts with a partnership and friendship between Horace Calkins and Mary Chase Perry Stratton. Mary Chase Perry was born in 1867 in Hancock, Michigan, which is a small town in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Artistically inclined from a young age, studied drawing and painting, and with that, she was introduced to the process of China painting, a popular art form at the end of the 19th century, specifically in the city of Detroit. China painters would purchase pre-made porcelain blanks, never making the pots themselves, and how was they would mix powdered pigments with lavender oil, and they would paint them onto the delicate china surfaces and would fire it in a kiln to see that gorgeous finish that you're used to seeing on china now. Similar to watercolor painting, the artist would build up fields of color, but would have fire the pots in a kiln between the layers of china paint. So this is an example here of Mary's wonderful work that's on display in our current museum, if you ever have the chance to get down there. Mary excelled at china painting, as you can see in this Detroit News clipping here from 1896. She gained national recognition for her works and traveling the U.S. to do demonstrations of china painting techniques. Mary became familiar with all aspects of the process, including firing the pottery and operating the kilns. Meanwhile, back in the city of Detroit, Horace Calkins was a prominent businessman owning a successful dental supply company in the city. In the early 1890s, Horace began designing and selling kilns for the firing of porcelain teeth. called Revelation kilns, as you see in one of his ads here from the early 1890s. Taking advantage of the growing popularity of China painting in Detroit, Revelation kilns expanded to include a line of kilns for the firing of China pottery. These small kilns were especially appealing to China painters as the compact kiln made frequent firings possible through the reduction of power up and cool down time reduction. Now, while teaching a class at a local pottery studio, Mary was first introduced to the Revelation kiln. She was thrilled with the idea of the kiln, but was curious about its maker because she had some suggestions for improvement for them. Shortly after, their partnership officially begins when Horace hires Mary to be a traveling kiln saleswoman. As Mary was already traveling to teach workshops on China painting, she then added a demonstration on the ease of use of Revelation kilns when visiting community studios and schools around the U.S. And they did pretty well for themselves. Revelation kilns were quite popular, with kilns ordered and placed in kiln rooms in community studios and schools all throughout the U.S. This is a 1899 photo showing a line of Revelation kilns at Lysette Pottery in Georgia. And while Mary had found success in her career, a curiosity was building in her. What is the material that I'm working with, she's asking herself. What exactly is happening during the kiln firing? And most importantly, how would I go about making my own pots? Meanwhile, back in Detroit, things are changing rapidly. With the build of the Industrial Revolution and the invention of the automobile, the city was busier than ever. The Industrial Revolution in Detroit was changing the way that Americans worked, with the birthplace of the modern moving assembly line credited to being right here in the city. And I think similarly to how many feel today during the digital age, there was a feeling of discomfort or discontent surrounding those advancements. Surely how things are made matters. The hands of humans is not truly replaceable, right? The arts and crafts movement was a response to the changing landscape of the world, focusing on celebrating the handmade altogether. Detroit was one of the many cities around the world that formed an organization, and shortly after the turn of the century, the Detroit Society of Arts and Crafts was created. Now, Mary and Horace were founding members of the Detroit Society of Arts and Crafts, along with a network of artists, designers, and architects. So this built them a nice big network with connections that helped to jumpstart their future pottery business when they did decide to move forward. With this energy and changing landscape in mind, Mary was ready for something new. So she was curious about expanding her knowledge about ceramics, and she proposed that they start a handmade pottery business. In this carriage house that you see here in Detroit's Bush Park is where their experiments began. This was a building that we now affectionately refer to as the Stable Studio. So this right here was a carriage house to a much larger Victorian house that still stands there today in Brush Park. It is known as the Ransom Gillis House. So if you've ever seen pictures of it or seen it on TV, it was featured a couple years back on an episode of Rehab Addict with Nicole Curtis, and they redid the entire house. So beautifully restored, but the Stable Studio carriage house is no longer there, unfortunately. Now, the first few years here were highly experimental as they learned about developing clay and glazes, and learned how to form pieces and learn more about the firing of pottery in their Revelation kilns. And as they started to find their footing with increasing sales and interest in the new Detroit pottery endeavor, a new need occurred, an official name for the business, because up until that point, she was just known as Miss Perry's Pottery. Now, as Mary considered a future business name, she found herself reflecting on her childhood in Hancock, Michigan, which was the small town in Michigan Peninsula. And this area of the UP is known as Michigan's Copper Country, which experienced a big boom in the mid-19th century. During Mary's childhood there would have been 4 copper mines operating in Hancock, the Ripley, Quincy, Pewabic, and Franklin mines. And the Perry family would frequently walk by the Pewabic mine, a fond memory that Mary recalled as an adult. So the Pewabic Mining Company was not the first group to mine this location, as there's evidence that humans began mining here, mining copper here well over around 8,000 years earlier. The Pewabic name has been used in this area long before the official mining company and derives from Ojibwe terminology, and it's directly translated from Pewabic, which loosely means metal. So Mary was not so much thinking behind the meaning of the word, but more so the nostalgia associated with the name Pewabic. So this information was not really available to Mary at the time as far as what the translation actually meant. So like I mentioned, it was purely nostalgia. So she switched the official name in 1903 to Pewabic Pottery. Now, with the principle of the arts and crafts movement being central in their thoughts, Pewabic pieces were and have always been truly handmade from the beginning. And you can see Mary here working in the stable studio on several of her early pieces that we still recreate today as well. Now, pottery made by Pewabic during its first years was very on trend for what was popular in the arts and crafts movement at the time. Pots often included botanical imagery, like this group of wheel-thrown pots with modern sculptural elements, many depicting local Michigan wildflowers. These early Pewabic vases were well received in their time, providing a solid foundation for the growth to come. But they are also appreciated long after their creation, with these consistently being the most desired pots made by Pewabic within the collection market. So if you ever have anything pre-1920, you want to hang on to that. After a successful start in the stable studio, Pewabic was ready for more space. Their new building was designed by William Buck Stratton and Frank Baldwin. William Buck Stratton was a longtime friend of Mary and Horace, as well as a founding member of the Detroit Society of Arts along with them. Many years later, in 1918, William Buck Stratton and Mary Chase Perry wed after decades of friendship. So that is where the name Stratton comes in. The Pewabic Pottery building was completed in 1907, and by November, the new pottery opened up there. The building style can be described as Tudor Revival and was inspired by architecture from the Kent district of England, where Horace's family was from. The building was designed to allow Pewabic to expand operations a bit with dedicated art-making spaces throughout. Mary is pictured here working in what at the time was known as the decorating room, but it is our current architectural tile showroom. The building also included space to house our historic equipment, much of which we still use today, like this clay mixture from 1912. As business increased, so did the responsibilities, leading Mary and Horace to hire staff members. Many of the original staff stayed for their whole careers. The men pictured here worked at Pewabic for over 40 years each. Horace Calkins died unexpectedly in 1923, making this crew more essential to business operations than ever before. This assistance let Mary oversee the operations, design the projects, and focus on what she really loved, which was glaze development and experimentation. Mary developed countless glazes during her career, but it was her iridescent glazes that gained national attention. Iridescent glazes were not a new surface. In fact, Mary was drawing inspiration from ancient glazes developed in the Middle East, more so in the Persia region, which were introduced to Mary by a friend, Charles Lane Freer, who was a local industrialist and art collector. Freer amassed an incredible art collection of nearly 8,000 objects during his lifetime, with a large priority being placed on Asian art. In fact, his collection is now the National Museum of Asian Art at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. While it was still housed in Detroit, Mary was invited to view and study his collection, which included this very pot that you see here, where Freer would challenge her to replicate that exact glaze if she possibly could. And it turns out that she could, but not quickly and not without help. After nearly 2 years of experimentation, Mary pulled this very pot from the kiln at Pewabic. It was finally just right, and in 1906, Pewabic officially began using iridescent glazes. Iridescent glazes have a metallic surface with a large amount of variety and depth of surface. These glazes were often layered, resulting in diverse range of different surface results, sometimes on one pot. And they can definitely be described as dichroic, meaning depending upon how you're looking at it, it will have a different view each time. To achieve the metallic surface, Mary would spray vaporized kerosene into the kiln at peak temperature, which caused a flash reduction environment impacting the glazed surface. And Mary said this process felt as though she was painting with fire, and she most certainly was. So, while we still produce iridescent glazes today, we've learned a bit about the ceramic materials and their impact on the human body. We no longer use kerosene to achieve our metallic surfaces, but we were able to replicate the same type of look by a mixture of vegetable oil, dish soap, and water that we inject into the kiln. And those are all still combustibles as well, so it causes a flash reduction environment just as we are hoping, and also creates the same effect, so much safer. Similarly, we have reformulated all of our glazes and no longer use the original recipes. Now, when Mary passed away in 1961, it had hit the media that all of her recipes and glaze results were lost to time, never to be replicated again. That's not true. We have all of her formula books, all of her recipes, everything, but what did we find that most glazes contained in the 60s that weren't really healthy for you, glazes and paints? Yes. So her recipes were 94% lead. So we definitely had to reformulate that. And so we have an in-house ceramic materials engineer that creates all of our current glaze surfaces in clay bodies and was able to help reformulate those in a much safer way as well. This pot is a good example of why that is, as this shows a lead-based iridescent glaze layered over a uranium orange base glaze. So Mary did sometimes use uranium. If you have some pre-1950s pieces that are a vibrant orange, it's likely that they contain a certain amount of uranium. We've learned a lot about these materials in the last 100 years, and while we appreciate and are often inspired by the historic glaze, we cannot responsibly use them, obviously. Mary continued formulating glazes for the remainder of her career, leaving a vibrant legacy for us to continue on today. But of all the artwork created by Pewabic, the first association is usually to architectural tile, which is the heart of our historic organization. Pewabic's move to creating tile was definitely an intentional one. With Mary's training in drawing and painting, plus the massive growth in the local area, it was a natural next step. While early experiments with tile began as early as Pewabic formed, it was officially added to the offerings in 1905. Just like with pottery, Pewabic's approach to tile is a traditionally arts and crafts, focusing on tiles truly being handmade in the way that they look, with an undulating surface, rounded edges, and often imperfect form. Mary described the tiles as having freedom in their fashioning. Starting off by tiling a few fireplaces for private residences, the popularity of Pewabic tiles seemed to skyrocket overnight. This was surely helped by the founder's close connections to local architects through the Detroit Society of Arts and Crafts. Today, early examples of tiles can be found in private and public spaces throughout the United States. So let's take a look at some examples of tile installations completed by the original staff at Pewabic Pottery. So we'll start off with one of our more well-known installations, the Guardian Building, located in downtown Detroit. And this building was built in 1928 and completed in 1929. And it contains a combination of rookwood and Pewabic tile. A common misconception is that the inside of the Guardian Building, that is all Pewabic tile. That is actually all rookwood tile. There is no Pewabic tile inside of the Guardian Building. Our tile is on the outside that you see here. So you see adorning the curved entryways from Griswold Street, you see this beautiful design here. as well as windows, which are lined in tiles symbolizing the range of Detroit industry. Pewabic tiles are included and viewable in many public spaces throughout the city. The Detroit Institute of Arts has some incredible installations like this drinking fountain in the Riviera Court. And then there is also some flooring in the Rivera Court. There is also some flooring that was installed in the 1990s in the Rivera Court. So that one's much later. As well as these incredible niches and floral murals located in the American wing of the DIA. Now, these were actually covered in the 1950s by drywall, and they just found these in the late 90s. So they did not know they were there, apparently, but so yes, they just uncovered them, and they're letting them shine in their glory. And lastly, these colorful stairs in the Detroit Film Theater, also located in the back of the DIA. Just across the street, we find this fireplace located in the children's room at the Detroit Public Library main branch, which features a variety of tiles depicting different popular children's stories of the time. The loggia of the Detroit Public Library main branch also contains Pewabic tile, this time in the form of colorful mosaics aligning the ceiling, which is not something that Mary did very often in her time. The installation portrays 7 ages of man from Shakespeare's As You Like It. The final mosaic design shows a combination of symbolic imagery and quotations from the play. Another fun tiles around public spaces is this hidden gem on Belle Isle, a Pewabic tiled bridge designed by William Buck Stratton, the same architect that designed the Pewabic building. So here are the few details from the Belle Isle Bridge. Some of it's in a little bit of a rough shape, but Pewabic tiles were commonly included in new schools throughout the city, often as fireplaces decorating the school library or kindergarten classrooms. So let's take a closer look at this specific fireplace, as the tiles showcase popular children's stories of the time as well, like Puss in Boots, located in the center of the fireplace. And the tiles at the top read, "A book is an enchanted gate that leads to magic lands." We also see Pewabic tiles adorning school drinking fountains, often adorning the hallways of the local public schools as well. These fountains were often dedicated to the graduating class of that particular year. This particular fountain was dedicated to the class of January 1924 at Southeastern High School in Detroit. At one time, there were over 60 Detroit public school buildings that contained Pewabic tile. And many individuals ask why so many Detroit public schools contain them. During the Great Depression, Mary found out that the only place that was using architectural tile and could afford it was in local schools. So she approached the school board and found out that they had a little bit of a clause in their contract that precedence was to be given to Detroit-made business and tile for their projects. So Mary was able to kind of weasel her way in there and get lots of cool installations that are still there today in many of the schools in that time. Now, many colleges and universities contain Pewabic tile as well, including a beautiful drinking fountain in Wayne State University's old main building. So here's a closer look at that with many iridescent tiles and combined imagery there. The University of Michigan campus features some Pewabic tiles, including this colorful mural located at the exterior of Stockwell Hall. And not too far from there, you'll find this incredible fountain located at the Earhart Manor at Concordia University. Pewabic tiles adorn the campus of Michigan State University with tile work located in many buildings throughout, like this unique fireplace located in Williams Hall. And we also find Pewabic tiles installed at many colleges and universities outside of our local area, like this tiled entryway at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Now, in addition to public spaces, Pewabic tiles were frequently used in private residences. Pictured is Mary laying out tiles for the outdoor fountain at the Booth Estate. This is one private residence that is now open to the public on the campus of Cranbrook Educational Community. That fountain today, now known as Rainbow Fountain, located near the Booth residence on Cranbrook campus in Bloomfield, Michigan. You can see here. And we actually replaced the tiles in the 2000s, very recently, as hard water and iron destroyed the original iridescent fountain designed by Mary. But the layout itself is close to the original design. Now, when catching up with these early tile installations in homes, we find a wide variety of different styles and approaches. Each seems to be made fit the personality and preferences of the original homeowners. Sometimes we find these simple tiled fireplaces designed to bring visual balance and harmony to the larger room, while other fireplaces bring a bit more visual texture and color, like this iridescent fireplace adorned with embossed geometric tiles. Pewabic tiles were often used as flooring throughout these historic homes as well, providing a warm foundation in the room. This room is a great example of the handcrafted nature of Pewabic tile, as no two tiles are identical. Sometimes these floors have small accents sprinkled throughout, like these little iridescent tile jewels tucked into the corner of a dining room. Some of the largest Pewabic installations in private residences were created for bathrooms, with entire rooms adorned with tiles up to the ceiling. Sometimes we find the tiles help to create a peaceful space, like this bathroom filled with soft green Pewabic tiles, while other bathrooms are bright and vibrant to wake you up in the morning. And some are even playful in their design. This particular bathroom has a turtle spigot that was designed as part of our early pottery, and you can see in this photo here. And we often find small tile details like this windowsill, with some being more complex than others. This particular windowsill has open tiles for ventilation, as the heat registers are located below. And other homes have more prominent focal points, like indoor water fountains in this home that you see here on their sun porch, with this one featuring a pair of turtles at the fountain spout. Fun little, I call them the fighting turtles, but some people think they're dancing. So we also find outdoor water fountains. You can see here with the elaborate fish's head there. And even backyard reflecting pools. This early iridescent pool has lived a good life in Southern California, sparing the glaze from the harsh freeze and thaw of Michigan's winters. And some homes have a little bit of everything, like this incredible house located in Grosse Pointe Park. This is probably one of the most well-known Pewabic tiled private residences, known as Stratton House. This previously belonged to William Buck Stratton and Mary Chase Perry Stratton after they were married. Now, a side fact, during the Great Depression, Mary was doing her best to struggle through, and the financial books at the pottery were definitely at a dangerous level. Mary did have to go ahead and sell her home in lieu of keeping the pottery open. So that's what they did. The original deed says that pretty much they're not able to touch Pewabic pottery as long as her house is sold. So they downsized, by no means destitute, but they downsized to a smaller house over in Brush Park. Now, the house designed by William Buck Stratton includes Pewabic tile throughout, including exterior details, kitchen, fireplaces, flooring, and of course, colorful tile bathrooms. Mary decorated her house with whimsical and colorful tiles to surround her everyday life. While the sheer number of tiles in this home is definitely impressive, the largest Pewabic tile installations to date were in sacred spaces. Pictured here is the floor of Sacred Heart Seminary in Detroit, the second largest Pewabic tile installation ever created. Located within the main sanctuary, the tiled flooring stretches throughout the space, providing a colorful and rich tapestry filled with symbolic meaning hidden throughout. These Pewabic tiled church installations often blended botanical imagery with early Christian symbolism, inspired by Mary's travels to the catacombs in Rome. As a woman of faith, these projects were the highlight of Mary's artistic career. While the tile work within Sacred Heart Seminary is unique in its scale and application, it is certainly not the only church in the local area containing Pewabic tiles. So let's take a look at a few more church installations. In Midtown Detroit, we find the Cathedral Church of St. Paul with beautiful Pewabic tile flooring. This was actually her first public installation that she did in 1908. It is filled with embossed tile details. And St. Paul's is a great example of how these iridescent glazes really fit into the devotional nature of these sacred spaces. In downtown Detroit, we find St. Aloysius, where this beautiful space is decorated with sections of Pewabic tile jewels, many featuring iridescent glazes. And over on the east side of Detroit near Pewabic Pottery, we find the Shepherd. Once a Catholic church, the Shepherd has been reimagined as a cultural arts center and contemporary exhibition space and campus. But the signs of its first life are still present, like the sanctuary floors featuring Pewabic tiles set with slabs of marble. So if you ever have a chance to see that, it is gorgeous. And on the west side of Detroit, we find the incredible Most Holy Redeemer Church. And at this church, we find colorful Pewabic tiles on the sanctuary floor, many displaying symbols and stories of Christianity. The tile work here spreads throughout the chancel into the aisle and greets you in the narthex. Even the exterior is decorated with Pewabic tile, including two very unique tile lunettes above the entryway doors. Holy Redeemer also has two mosaic medallions completed by Pewabic Pottery. And as I mentioned before, this tile application was used very infrequently. So there's another great example, though, found in the vaulted baptistry ceiling at Church Christ, Cranbrook, and Bloomfield Hills. While a large number of Pewabic church installations are located in the city of Detroit, we also find many projects extend outside of our local area. The largest Pewabic tile installation ever completed is located at the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. The ceiling of the crypt church is a combination of Gustavino tile, which is all of the field tile, and Pewabic tile, which is all of the imagery and detailed tile. This detail photo gives us a closer look at the details contained within the ceiling tiles at the shrine. Many of these segments were inspired by mosaics and imagery that Mary had found in the Roman catacombs. Tile details are tucked in each corner of the crypt ceiling, showcasing the wide range of soft Pewabic glazed surfaces. Mary even formulated special glazes for the project, resulting in bright lustered surfaces. This particular section depicts the Father, with other ceiling medallions depicting the Son and the Holy Spirit. This large project was an artistic challenge for Pewabic, and it took Mary and the staff nearly 2 years to complete. Not only is the Shrine of Immaculate Conception the largest Pewabic tile installation, but it's also the one that made Mary the most proud. Now, for those that would like a closer look at the tiles without visiting the DC area, an extra dove from the Shrine project is now on display in the Pewabic Museum that you see here, where it was hung after our formation as a 501c3 organization. Now, when Mary passed away in the 60s, we had went up to her attic space and we found this extra dove medallion that's really a good, 4 feet across, 4 feet wide, or 4 feet tall. And we had realized that during Mary's time, all tile travel was done by train. So she was very nervous that things would break on the way, so she often made backups. And this particular one made it there in one piece, so we have the backup now still here at the pottery. Now, Pewabic tiles made by the founding staff made their way into public and private spaces all throughout the United States. And to this day, we are still discovering locations containing their tiles. Mary continued to run the pottery with a lot of help from Pewabic's talented and dedicated staff members up until her last days. In all, she operated Pewabic for 58 years. It's incredible to think all that Mary, Horace, and their trusted staff were able to accomplish during their time, especially when you think about the obstacles that they had encountered along the way. While Mary founded Pewabic Pottery, she worked for nearly 2 decades before gaining legal ownership of her business. She was not able to own a business during the early years, as women were not allowed to own businesses during that time. And she was also not legally able to vote until the age of 53. So women like Mary not only opened up a seat at the table for other women in the arts, but paved a path so that ceramic education was more accessible moving forward for all who wanted to pursue it. In addition to her artistic accomplishments, Mary was also involved in the development of ceramic education all throughout Metro Detroit. And while teaching classes at Pewabic, she also founded the ceramics program at the College for Creative Studies at Wayne State University and the University of Michigan as well. After Mary's death in 1961 at the age of 94, the future of the pottery was uncertain. Now, given Mary's affinity for education, Pewabic approached the local universities for help. An early student of Mary's was in leadership at Michigan State University at the time, giving the university a personal connection to the historic pottery. Wanting to save this historic place from closing, MSU took ownership of Pewabic Pottery in 1967. Michigan State was in operation of Pewabic from 1967 to 1981, using it as a facility to teach ceramic art. Classes took place throughout the building, allowing students to learn about the process in a historic facility. The cost of building upkeep was proving to be a bit steep for Michigan State, and discussions started about the next steps yet again in the late 70s. The Pewabic Society was formed as a group to help advocate for the future of the pottery, growing in numbers and strengthening in structure until they were ready to assume responsibility. In 1981, Pewabic Society was officially positioned as a 501c3 organization taking ownership of Pewabic Pottery. And that is the same structure that continues at Pewabic here today, where we operate out of our National Historic Landmark building, and where later this year we will celebrate our 124th anniversary. And while that's an incredible amount of time, we actually find things really haven't changed too much around here. We're still surrounded by talented artists, and you'll see here Mary's second employee, Joseph Herrick, who she hired in 1905, throwing a pot around 1940, and this is Kayla. She's one of our throwers. And our throwers create beautiful pottery and tile that you are meant to live with. And just like the original staff, we create quality clay, even relying on the same trusty equipment that they did, like our 1912 clay mixer. And we are definitely following in well-worn footsteps of our original workers as we continue handcrafting tile in nearly the same way for the last 124 years. And I'm happy to say we have been very busy. And we're proud to continue adorning the city with our tiles. Many of the people mover stations in downtown Detroit feature Pewabic tiles, like this beautiful installation at Cadillac Center Station. And continuing with some more public transportation, we have the Q line stations along Woodward. And they each have simple handcrafted field tile in a variety of bold primary colors dotted all along Woodward Avenue. And continuing along Woodward, you'll also see Pewabic tiles at Comerica Park, which are surrounding the building and very on theme. And next up is Little Caesars Arena, which has iridescent red wing tiles set into tall sections of field tile. And we're still tiling our local libraries as well, like this mural at Plymouth District Library. And this mural recently installed at the Shelby Township Library, which you can see a bit closer here. And we are still tiling private residences, like this fireplace project that recently aired on an episode of Bargain Block. And this floor medallion that greets you upon entering the house. This is a backyard fountain inspired by the drinking fountain at the Detroit Institute of Arts that we completed in 2019. See a bit more detail here. And this incredible fireplace project, which we also recently finished. And one more look, since we're especially proud of this one. Today, Pewabic is a multifaceted organization consisting of over 50 hardworking employees who help to balance this line of progress and tradition that we have been fortunate enough to inherit. Mary and Horace created a legacy that we are proud to carry on today, and we would love to share it with you. So we'd love for you to come and visit. We are open to the public Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Sundays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we're located about 1.5 miles east of the Belle Isle Bridge along Jefferson, right across from Detroit Waterworks. Now, to learn more about Pewabic Pottery or to plan your visit, you can visit our website, which all of our handouts have for sure up there. There you can sign up for an educational experience and learn more about our mission to enrich the human spirit through clay. For those wanting to jump in to learn more about Pewabic tile installations, be sure to watch our website and social. This past spring, we actually ended up launching a new program, Tile Installation Walking Tours. So we do walking tours in the city of Detroit and discuss the different installations. We're also going to be starting specific tours for just one location to make it a little more mobile friendly for anyone who has mobility issues. For those interested in supporting Pewabic, you can also learn more at pewabic.org/give and how to get involved. All right, come on. All right, so thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at Pewabic soon. So I usually open up for questions at this point after we've kind of touched on a bit more about history. Can anyone think of any questions regarding anything? Yes?
Okay, so have you planning on, or have you ever thought about installing some Pewabic here at this library?
So we would love to install tile wherever anyone is willing to pay for it. So so we rely on the patrons to purchase the tile where we would then install it. So if we had it our way, we would love to install it. But just like any other business, they would purchase the tile and install it. So let's talk to our administrators about it. Yeah.
Is there any kind of like maker's mark that you should look for if you want to identify Pewabic in the wild?
Yeah. So as far as our what we call vessels, which would be vases or bowls or anything that can pretty much hold something, our stamps have changed all throughout the years. So if you go to our website, we have different blog posts surrounding our history. Our archivist does blogs. And in one of those blogs, she did about the different stamps that have changed all throughout the years. We had a specific one from 1898 to 1903, then another from 1903 to 1910, then another. But the very first one said Revelation Pottery, and then from there it went on to say Miss Perry's Pottery, then it went on to just say Pewabic. But from 1903 all the way to present, it's going to say Pewabic. So some sort of way it will say Pewabic. Now that is only on vessels. Mary and her staff did not typically stamp gift tile or architectural tile. So there's no way in terms of stamp to tell that. We also have a specific blog post on our website that tells you how to identify our field tile out in the public. Or you can also contact one of us through the website. But like I mentioned, we're very much known for tiles that are undulating from the surface typically. They have rounded corners versus like a perfect square corner on subway tile. And you can typically never find two tiles next to each other that look the exact same. There's going to be some sort of surface variation or glaze variation or something. So if we show up to check out a field tile that someone thinks they have Pewabic and they look perfect right away, we're like, this isn't ours. So it's never going to be perfect. It was handmade, and that was very much the quality and look that Mary wanted. So yeah, in the back there. Yep, you. Perfect. Yeah, sorry.
They put this tile in the schools and things. What has happened to a lot of that tile? They've knocked down the schools and different buildings.
So Unfortunately, lost to time some of it. Sometimes looters or whatnot may get in there once the school shut down. We have no legal recourse or ownership of it. They paid for the tile and purchased it. But we have had individuals bring us tile that was either found or rescued or whatnot, and we do store it in our archives. So we do have some of that, like from the Stroh's Brewery factory that was down Detroit, that was Pewabic, all outside of that. Well, that's been since demolished, but we actually had a decent amount of it brought to us. So just from individuals who wanted to save it. But yes, unfortunately, some of it lost to time, some is still there. So we scour Urbex photos and stuff like that online to see if there's anyone who's exploring those areas. And sometimes we see that the fountain is still there, so we're hoping someone of the developers will take pity and rescue it. So, yep. So, yeah. Yep. Sorry.
Talking about like the 3D tiles that have an impression on them and the molds, do you maintain those like from the beginning, or how do you decide what
Yeah.
goes on or when to create new ones?
Yeah. So each mold, as far as it depends on which molds we're talking about. So our field tile, we use special presses to make the field tile. That's our just general flat architectural tile. So we have what are called ram presses, and we have a 2.5-ton ram press, a 15-ton ram press, and a 30-ton ram press. And each of those presses is good for about 450, or excuse me, each of those molds is good for about 450 presses approximately. So those last a little bit more because they're industrial strength, they're a little firmer. But then we use general just hydrostone and plaster molds for like our small arbor press tiles or our hand press tiles. Those last, depending upon how well they're doing, it can be 200 to 250. But the arbor press and hand presses, they'll last much longer because it's not as much pressure on them. So we can get up to 1,000 presses out of those. So we have a master mold maker. Her name is Sherilyn, and she's our longest standing employee. I believe she's been with us about 42 years. And so she takes charge of all of our molds. And they are always looking at the quality of the mold and if it at that point needs to be recarved or respaced or things like that. So we do have some historic molds in our collection that were Mary's originals, and we did create some new molds off of those master molds. So there are a good handful of tiles that we still create to this day that were Mary's original carving and design. So yeah. Go ahead.
Where do you get your clay?
So our clay, the dry material, is from a supplier in Ohio, but it is mined from all around the United States. If we were to define that we only want clay, say from Missouri or something, we'll probably run into supply chain issues or something down the road. But yes, so it's mined from all around the U.S. So, yeah. Go ahead.
You seem like sort of an ordinary business in some ways. Why are you nonprofit?
So that just had to do with the aspect of how things shifted in the 1980s into the ownership into the nonprofit society. They were kind of running into dangerous territory in terms of they may be closing down. And it was a group of students and Pewabic Pottery enthusiasts and former Pewabic teachers that all formed that group, came forward and created the nonprofit. And we think it's been operating so well since then that we haven't really seen any particular reason to change it. It also obviously opens us up to particular artistic grants and things like that we're able to get as a nonprofit status. So I think they just haven't really seen much of a reason to change it. It's been working. So, yeah.
What do you do at Pewabic?
So what do I do? So I work in the archives with our archivists. So we catalog items, and then I also work in our retail space. So I think I've seen a couple of you in there before, so familiar faces. And then I also give tours. So I'm a tour docent here and also the walking tours. So I've been kind of positioned throughout. I've been there just under 4 years. So, but being able to work in the archives, you see a lot of fun stuff, a lot of reading that you get to do. So develop a lot of personal knowledge through that. So, yeah.
Does the pottery, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Do you take commissions if we wanted to have a tile made
Yeah.
for an event?
Yeah, so any sort of custom project, which is what we would call it, whether it's architectural or like a personal tile project, there's just a couple of thresholds you would need to meet in order for us to be able to do that for you, and that's just to keep our business flowing and things like that, you would need to place either a $1,000 order or at least 6 square feet of tile. So one of those two thresholds needs to be met. And then our production time, we have been as far out as about 2 years on production time. We're actually at our lowest that we've been in a long time. I think we're around 3 months right now. So, but yep, still 3 months. So we've got lots of projects keeping us busy. It's just, we have to find that balance between the gift tile kiln space and the personal project kiln space. So, but yep, yeah. Uh-huh. So we don't necessarily do anything as far as any sort of rehabilitation for the tile, especially when it's sunk into mortar and it's been grouted. It's very difficult to get the tile out if you're even able to safely. They usually say that you expel more energy and surfaces trying to get it out versus just scrapping it and making it new. But we aren't involved in any sort of rehab projects or anything like that. We simply recreate the tile. We've recreated a lot of, probably 98% of our historic colors in our much safer manner. So we're able to replicate and redesign that tile. On the very top of our rooftop, we have a chimney at the pottery, and a couple of those tiles only within the last year started falling onto the roof. So we had to get up there, we just replaced them. So there wasn't much more, once they're chipped and stuff, but if it was like a mortar issue, we could just remortar them or regrout them, but yeah, so we're unfortunately not very involved in the rehabbing of them. Oh, yeah.
You mentioned tours. Do you give tours on a regular basis at the actual facility?
Yeah, so on Fridays, we have self-guided tours, so you're welcome to come, see the artisans in the back. You get a pamphlet you'll pick up and you're able to walk through, ask them questions if you'd like, whatnot. Aside from that, on Saturdays, we do paid tours. So those are usually the second Saturday of the month, so you would reserve it online. So each tour group, I think we keep usually 20-25 limit. But yep, you can always reserve one online unless you wanted to do a self-guided tour. And then if you have a group, of at least like 10, then they'll do a private tour for you. So, but that's all arranged online. So, yeah.
Is your clay high fire clay?
Yes.
And do you sell your glazes?
So we don't sell our glazes, not because we're not wanting to get recipes out there or anything. It's just more so related to supply chain issues. There was a point where we sold our clay and I think minimal glazes, and it was getting to a point where we would be running out for our purposes, and then the students and public was upset that we weren't selling it to them, and it was like, well, we got to keep some for us. So I think just to avoid the common supply chain issues, they don't sell them anymore, unfortunately. But yep, yeah, almost all of our pottery and everything clay is high fire. So yeah, we do cone 9, cone 10, if you know that language. So anyone else? Yeah, yeah.
Is Revelation kilns still in service?
No, not that I'm aware of. Obviously, they were sold, so I'm not sure what everyone in the world's doing with theirs. We actually own about 8 of them. So a couple were donated to us. They were found in basements of dental companies, and people researched them and called us up from, I think one was in Tennessee, and said, if you want it, it's here, So we took it. There is one on display in our museum, so if you ever get down there, that's kind of cool to see. But yes, we don't currently operate them, and I'm not sure if anyone else does. They were kerosene oil powered. So I'm not sure if anyone out there is still messing with that, but we use natural gas to power our current kilns. So yeah, I'm sorry.
You use ceramic, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the only mixture you use for tiles, or different kinds of terracotta or different types of clays do you use, or just the
Yeah, no, so we actually, 95% of what we do is called white stoneware. So yep, so we do use, which is considered under the ceramic umbrella. We do have some gift tile pieces that we do in terracotta. Like our trivets are typically done in terracotta just for heat retention purposes. Terracotta tends to hold on to that heat pretty well. So other than that, 95% is the white stoneware. We don't do anything else like porcelain or anything like that. So mainly white stoneware.
here the weather is very cold, right?
Mhm.
So terracotta will not stay in the outside
Mhm.
environment. It is
Yeah.
has to be inside temperature
Yeah.
environment.
Yep.
That's why I'm
Yeah, nope, we don't do any of the gift tile or anything like that, or our architectural tile in terracotta. That's all the white stoneware. So, yep, yeah. Anyone else? All right, awesome. Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.